शङ्करं नमामि ॐ विनायकं समस्तलोकशङ्करम् अनाथदीनरक्षकम् अनन्तसद्गुणाकरम् अनाथदीनरक्षकम् अनन्तसद्गुणाकरम् गणेश्वरं गजेश्वरं सुरेश्वरं महेश्वरं गणेश्वरं गजेश्वरं सुरेश्वरं महेश्वरं नमामि ॐ विनायकं समस्तलोकशङ्करं नमामि ॐ विनायकम् समस्तलोकशङ्करं योगिनां हृदन्तरे वसन्तभास्करं विभुं योगिनां हृदन्तरे वसन्तभास्करं विभुं मुदाकरं कृपाकरं सुदानन्दात्मरञ्जकम् मुदाकरं कृपाकरं सुदानन्दात्मरञ्जकं गणेश्वरं गजेश्वरं सुरेश्वरं महेश्वरं गणेश्वरं गजेश्वरं सुरेश्वरं महेश्वरं नमामि ॐ विनायकम् समस्तलोकशङ्करं नमामि ॐ विनायकं समस्तलोकशङ्करम् रंगा हरे विठला पुरंदर रंगा हरे विठला पंढरी रंगा हरे विठला पंढरी रंगा हरे विठला पुरंदर रंगा हरे विठला पुरंदर रंगा हरे विठला पंढरी रंगा हरे विठला पंढरी रंगा हरे विठला पुरंदर रंगा हरे विठला पुरंदर रंगा हरे विठला हर हर रंगा हरे विठला नर हर रंगा हरे विठला मुरहर रंगा हरे विठला मुरहर रंगा हरे विठला पुरंदर हरे विठला पुरंदर रंगा हरे विठला पंढरी रंगा हरे विठला पंढरी रंगा हरे विठला पुरंदर रंगा हरे विठला पुरंदर रंगा हरे विठला हर रंगा हरे विठला नर हर रंगा हरे विठला मुरहर रंगा हरे विठला मुरहर रंगा हरे विठला दर रंगा हरे विठला पुरंदर रंगा हरे विठला पुरंदर रंगा हरे विठला काकड़ा बाजार में सबकी मांगे थे, हीरा कड़ा बाजार में सबकी मांगे थे। ना कहो से दोस्ती, ना कहो से बैर कबीरा, ना कहो से बैर। जात न पूछो साधु की, पूछ लियो तो ज्ञान। जात न पूछो साधु की, पूछ लियो तो ज्ञान। और करो पलवार का, पड़े रहन जो ज्ञान कबीरा, पड़े रहन जो ज्ञान। कोटि पढ़ जग मरा, पंडित भया न को। कोटि पढ़ जग मरा, पंडित भया न को। ढाई अक्षर प्रेम का, पढ़े सो पंडित होय कबीरा, पढ़े सो पंडित हो। हुआ तो क्या हुआ, जैसे पेड़ न छू। बड़ा हुआ तो क्या हुआ, जैसे पेड़ खजूर। वंचितो छाया नहीं, फल लागे अति दूर कबीरा, फल लागे अति दूर। हर पूजे हरि मिले, तो मैं पूज पहाड़। पत्थर पूजे हरि मिले, तो मैं पूज पहाड़। इससे तो चक्की बलि, तो से खाए संसार कबीरा, से खाए संसार। ये जग मरा, फिकर है सबका पीर। फिकर है ये जग मरा, फिकर है सबका पीर। फिकर को जो मार दे, उसका नाम फकीर कबीरा, उसका नाम फकीर। जब किया तो क्यों किया, किया तो क्यों पछताए। करने किया तो क्यों किया, किया तो क्यों पछताए। बबूल काम आम कहाँ से खाए कबीरा, आम कहाँ से खाए। जब निसत अभ्यास से जड़ मत होत सुजान। कर अभ्यास से जड़ मत होत सुजान। रस्सी आत जात से सिर पल पड़े निशान कबीरा, सिर पड़े निशान। मेरा साइया सोना घट नहीं कोई, घट घट मेरा साइया सोना घट नहीं को। घाट की घाट पर घट होय कबीरा, या घट पर घट हो। हीरा मन निर्मल भयो जैसे गंगा नीर। हीरा मन निर्मल भयो जैसे गंगा नीर। से पीछे हरे तेरे यस कबीर कबीर कबीरा कहत कबीर कबीर। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शांति शांति शांति। Together we will chant Bhaj Govindam verses 10 to 20, please. Bhaj Govindam chanting verses 10 to 20. भज गोविंदम गोविंदम भज मूढ़मते। संप्राप्ते सन्निहिते काले नहि नहि रक्षति डुक्रुन् करणे। वयसि गते कः काम विकारः शुष्के नीरे कः का सारः। क्षीणे वित्ते कः परिवारो ज्ञाते तत्त्वे कः संसारः। मा कुरु धन जन यौवन गर्वं हरति निमेषात् कालः सर्वम्। मायामयमिदमखिलं बोद्ध्वा ब्रह्मपदं त्वं प्रविश विदित्वा। दिनयामिन्यौ सायं प्रातः शिशिरवसन्तौ पुनरायातः। कालः क्रीडति गच्छत्यायुः तदपि न मुञ्चत्याशावायुः। काते कान्ता धनगतचिन्ता वातुल किं तव नास्ति नियन्ता। त्रिजगति सज्जन संगतिरेका भवति भवार्णवतरणे नौका। जटिलो मुण्डे लुञ्चितकेशः काषायाम्बरबहुकृतवेषः। पश्यन्नपि च न पश्यति मूढो हृदरनिमित्तं बहुकृतवेषः। अंगं गलितं फलितं मुण्डं दशनविहीनं जातं तुण्डम्। वृद्धो याति गृहीत्वा दण्डं तदपि न मुञ्चत्याशापिण्डम्। अग्रे वह्निः पृष्ठे भानुः Ratrau Chubuka Samarpita Januhu Karatala Bhiksha Starutala Vasaha Tadapi Namunchatyasha Pashaha Kurute Ganga Sagar Gamanam Vrata Paripalanam Athava Danam Gnana Vihina Sarvamatena Muktim na bhajati janmashatena Suramandira tarumula nivasaha shayya bhutala majinam vasaha Sarva parigraha bhoga tyagaha kasya sukham na karoti viragaha Yogarato va bhogarato va sangarato va sangavihinaha Yasya brahmani ramate chetam nandati nandati nandatyeva Bhagavad Gita Kinchitadhita Ganga Jalalava Pita Sakradapi Yena Murari Samarcha Kriyate Tasya Yamena Nacharcha Bhaja Govindam Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate Samprapte Sannihite Kale Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dukrun Karane We have been studying in the previous class the chapter in Vedanta Treatise, the four yogas. The title of the chapter is the four yogas, and the path of devotion has been thoroughly covered, and the path of knowledge we have started in the previous class. We have covered the couple of paragraphs, but we will have a quick recap about what we studied and what we understood in the previous class. Gnana Yoga, path of knowledge, the path to perfection in human being is one of the paths which is for the predominantly intellectual category in human beings who are having more of reason dominating their personality percentage wise. They are prone to inquiry. The people of this category who take up the path of knowledge, Gnana Yoga, the path of Gnana Marg, those people are predominantly rational, predominantly intellectual, predominantly inquiry minded, thinker class. In effect, we can say a class of thinkers, a reasoning, a questioning. They need logic and reason for every moment of life. Such people who happen to be taken up this path of knowledge, they are suitable for. So, such people will do better in the development of their personality when they take up this knowledge and study and reflection, understanding and grow spiritually is the path designed for such category of people. In that people, what we have studied is that what is Gnanam? Gnanam is the knowledge, and Gnana Yoga is the path of knowledge designed for the intellectual category. It is meant for those who inquire into the mystery of this origin, mystery of this life. Mystery means that which beats your intellect. The miracle, the mystery, the something which is not understandable. That is called mystery. A person died in the mysterious circumstances, we say, means the cause is unknown. We cannot figure out what could be the circumstances the person met with the death. So any things happen which we cannot understand, we just simply puzzled, flabbergasted. Such mysterious things, we call it mystery. So the whole universe, the origin of this universe itself is a great mystery. The life itself is a great mystery because nobody knows. So those people who are designed to take up path of knowledge, they who inquire into the mystery of life. What's happening with my life? Where am I going? How do I understanding this life? And what is this world? How to understand this world? And what is the relationship between me and this external world? Who am I? This personality. What am I? Who am I? This unknown individuality. I claim myself, I believe I know, but I genuinely don't understand who is myself. This inquiry into oneself. How did the world come about? This whole creation, who created it? Where did it come from? You just can't take it for granted by just giving some pacifying answers that some God, some unknown term called used God, God, God word created this world. The inquirers, the sincere quest seekers, they are not satisfied with this mere emotional satisfaction by saying God has created this. They just wanted to genuinely probe into this mystery of this origin. So such people are inquiry minded. They always question this: who did this world? Where did this world come from? What is the origin of all infinite living beings coming from? And how did this world exist? Who is God? Is there God first? Who is God? The path of knowledge deals with, finds these answers to these baffling questions. Only the path of knowledge assures you, gives you clarity about these questions. The Gnana Yoga, the path of knowledge, is going to help us clearing all these doubts pertaining to your original state, what you originally belong, what is this world, what is the exact nature of this world and relationship between you and the world. All the fundamental existential questions have been addressed by this path of knowledge. The path which is Gnana Yoga, the general misconception prevalent in this world is any knowledge a person gains, they generally gain for mere scholarship, mere erudition, mere scholastically improving your erudition and scholarship, your qualifications or degrees. This is not the purpose of studying the religious literature. The religious knowledge, the scriptural knowledge is meant to gain the development of personality, understanding the truths of life. So it is not mere stuffing the brain with thoughts and ideas, cramming the spiritual knowledge and memorizing and reciting and reproducing just as any computer. It is not just by hearting and reproducing the textbooks and following the precepts and the following the blindly masters, teachers. The true knowledge arises out of an internal discipline, a knowledge which is growing arises out of the discipline, out of internal discipline of contemplation, reflection, analysis on the eternal truths of life. So there are the laws governing the life which has to be understood, analyzed, absorbed. So the scriptures and sermons would play a vital role in your spiritual development. So to grow spiritually, you need to study and understand the scriptures, to Shastras, the Vedantic literature, the philosophy of life, Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita. These are all the textbooks which contain essential, quintessential philosophy which improves your human origin, human development, self-improvement. It's an internal discipline. They play vital role in the part of spiritual development, provided how you approach it. You got to approach it originally, independently, and you got to think on the truths laid down by the galaxy of sages and saints in the Vedantic scriptures. These are all the voluminous literature is being provided to develop you spiritually only when you start thinking by yourself, not by mechanically following and blindly relying on the authorities of the masters and by hearting and reproducing. This is not the type of study what one person should be expected out of to grow spiritually. So provided to think originally on the subject and reflect upon each and every truths therein until you assimilate, digest, absorb, and try to live those values in your day-to-day life. As you absorb the knowledge, you apply into your practically in your life, and you will all walks of life. If you once you live these values, you begin to experience a higher quality of life. So you begin to question gradually. Once you develop your intellectual understanding, you grow into a higher dimension, then you gradually understand, and the question, the fundamental questioning, you start about this permanent and impermanent aspects of life. What is this life all about, and what is permanent, what is temporary, what are you looking for? You start inquiring, questioning practically what is eternal, what is ephemeral, what is the real and unreal, the distinction between the reality and unreality, like the world and God, the spirit and the matter, which you are made up of. A human being essentially made up of spirit and matter. That's what every human being or every living being. So you are a combination, but you got to identify, recognize what is spirit in the matter. You have that body, mind, and intellect which you contact the world using this equipment. But the core of your personality is the spirit, the self, the Atman, which is the reality, the truth, the God principle. That is permanent. The body, the mind, the intellect is temporary. So the real and unreal will be the distinction. You got to think on this distinction is the Gnana Yoga. Gnana Yoga is nothing but thinking of the distinction of real and unreal aspects of life, and got identified. You get on to the identification with the reality more than unreality and get to the yoga, means union with the self. You become the self. This is Adi Shankaracharya's advice as well. This discipline has been brought out by one potent advice, the great potent advice by poet philosopher Adi Shankaracharya. Nitya Anitya Viveka Vicharam. Nitya means eternal, Anitya means ephemeral, Viveka means discrimination, Vichara means thinking, which means reflecting on the distinction between the eternal and the ephemeral aspects of life. So, this is the Gnana Yoga. Jnanam is always got to be able to figure out the permanent aspects and identify with them and discard the temporary, negate the temporary passing aspects of life. You got to give the value, importance, the identity. You got to shift from temporary to permanent aspects of life and grow spiritually is the purpose of Gnana Yoga. Are you growing towards the self? Are you moving towards the Supreme God? Are you going closer and closer to the self is the question. That is the Jnana Yoga. Through intellect, through understanding, through contemplation, through reflection, through analysis, through inquiry, through thinking, through reflection. This is the procedure. Therefore, you must therefore examine the what is unchanging principle in the changing world. World is changing, your life is changing, whole thing is changing, but what remains constant, the thing which is remains constant is your supreme self within. So what remains constant in the inconstant factors of life? Observe your own journey, your own life journey, how it is passes through various facets of childhood, old age. So from childhood to old age, you have been changing your life from childhood, youth, adult, manhood, so old age. Your personality is in a constant flux of change. The personality is changing. What you are now, not what you are in the childhood and what you will be in the old age of down the line. The whole personality is changing, it is undergoing change. So there is every level you got to understand you are not in static condition, you are constantly changing. Your personality is in constant flux of change, never static. Yet whenever you refer yourself, you always call yourself myself, myself, myself. I am this, I am this, I am this. How can you refer to I am this when you are split second you are changing? A changing, slipping away into new thing you refer to myself. How can be a constant factor can be equated to changing factor? It is absurd, totally wrong. Therefore, yet you point to yourself, this is me, this is me, this height, this weight, this personality is me. When you are slipping into another personality, how can you equate to yourself as me? Little realizing that the moment you point your finger to yourself, you have already changed. Your personality gone through change and you refer to myself. There can be no fixation in your personality, of your personality. There is no fixation, there is no constancy, there is no fixation possible in the personality, because personality changing, your body going through change, your mind going through change, your intellect going through change, but you call yourself this is me, this is me. This is fundamentally wrong. Nevertheless, you go through, you going on declaring I am a child, I am a boy. Once upon a time you declared I was a child. Later on you say I am a boy. Later after some time you say I am a man. After some time you say I am an old man. Examine these changes. A child, a boy, man and old man. Child is not the boy, boy is not the man is not the old man. But you constantly equate it to I am a child, I am a boy, I am a man, I am an old man. How can a constant factor be equal to a changing factor when the changing factors are unequal factors? A constant factor cannot be equal to changing factors. It is totally absurd. Then who am I? What is this I? This has to be investigated through Gnana Yoga. That I, the personality keeps moving, moves on, but I remains constant because I is percolating and permeating in each and every facet of life. It is as long as you refer to myself, the I is coming, but the personality is slipping, changing into another person. The boy is not the child is not the man, and man is not the old man. Completely changed. But I am continuing. How can I am be equated to the changing factors? It is absolutely wrong. Therefore, who is that I? If the I also changing, then understandable, both are same. But I is a constant factor, percolating and changing and equating to changing factors. The same I assumes three distinct personalities in three distinct states of consciousness which you are going through. You live a life of three distinct personalities in distinct states of consciousness. As a person now, you declare, I am this person. Who is this person? A waker. In the waking state of consciousness now, you are the waker experiencing this waking world. I am the waker, you say. The moment you go to bed, you assume the position of a dreamer. You declare, I am the dreamer experiencing the dream world in the dream state of consciousness. And when you go to deep sleep state, you experience a deep sleep where there is nothingness, but you assume a position of deep sleeper, experiencing nothingness, a void, a blankness, a zero. That I am continues. I am the waker, this person in the waking state. I am the dreamer, the another person in the dream. In the waking state, you could be a married man having children and family. But in the dream state, you could be bachelor, suffering from starvation, penury, and the deep sleep zero. So I am the waker, I am the dreamer, I am the deep sleeper. This I am equal to the waker, dreamer, deep sleeper. How can you be the waker as well as the dreamer as well as the deep sleeper? Impossible. But the question problem is there is no application of the intellect in this inquiry. You are simply intellectually fatigued. You are complacent. You are the strain of intellect is not able to take it to probe into this unknown I, which is constantly entering you in every aspect of life, every experience of life. It is penetrating into your system and you are all the time with it, but you are not aware. That pure I has been percolating and permeating in each and every facet of experiences of life. The waker, the dreamer, the deep sleeper. They are all these three. Waker is not the dreamer. The dreamer is not the deep sleeper. All three are distinct and different personalities, but equated to I am, you declaring. I am the person in the waking state. I am the person in the dream state. I am the person in the deep sleep state. Who am I? Who am I? That I is never understood. That constant factor, that I, that runs through these three states of consciousness. It is not only childhood, old age, adult, and boyhood, the personality, it is also penetrating into the three states of consciousness which you are going through and assuming three distinct personalities and declaring, I am. It is totally lost. Your reality has been lost. Your identity has been lost. And you lost into the quagmire of ignorance of the Supreme Self, that pure I, and you declare all the falsities, wrong identities, waker, dreamer, deep sleeper, child, adult, old age, boyhood, all these non-essentials, the changing factors, the unequal factors you are attributing to the changeless entity, which is the I, pure I, which is the absurd going on. The path of knowledge, the Gnana Marga, helps you to develop the awareness of that one reality, of that one supreme reality, one changeless reality in the kaleidoscopic patterns of life. In the varieties of life, the constant factor is given by the path of jnanam, knowledge. Recognize the unity. This path of knowledge helps you to recognize the unity in diversity, the oneness in the homogeneous, oneness in the variety, heterogeneity, in the diversity, in the plurality of this entire world. You got this one constant factor through the path of knowledge only. You could able to recognize that one constant factor, the supreme self, the one self, Atman, the pulsating in every experience of your life, every facet of your life. You must develop that awareness, acute awareness of that supreme self, the constant factor, the divinity that pervades everywhere. It never leaves you. Your body may be, physical body may be left. When you go to dream, your body is not there. Physical body is lying on the bed. You are in the dream. Somewhere you are in the mind and intellect. When you go to deep sleep, the mind also falls away. The intellect also falls away. What left with you is your own supreme self and vasanas. So that self is always with you and you are that self, the Atman, but you got lost in that quagmire of this body and mind and intellect, these false identities, because of sheer ignorance, lack of jnanam. Path of knowledge helps you to recognize that constant factor, the divinity. Make good use of scriptural study. Therefore, jnanam will give you the real identity. Make good use of this scriptural study, the shastras, the knowledge and reflection, to probe into the self, to investigate the self, that constant factor, the I, that you are. You are that self, not what you believe yourself to be now. You believe this height, this weight, this individuality, this personality, which is false, totally false. This doesn't exist. This never existed in the past 100 years back. This personality you don't have. You got another personality. Now you have this personality, what you claim yourself to be. 100 years later, this personality goes into invalid, completely lost, and new personality may come or personality less, depending upon your state of evolution. But the constant factor which you are, the supreme self, continuously coming with you, that constant factor is your supreme self. You got to be aware. That awareness given by this jnana yoga, path of knowledge, the make good use of scriptural study and reflection to probe into the self that you are. Keep your thoughts, keep your ideas in your divine center. Constantly, whatever you think, whatever you feel, whatever you understand or what you don't understand, keep your thoughts and ideas constantly in the divine center of yourself. While you are functioning in the external world of objects and beings and experiences, you may contact the world with the body, you may be perceiving and acting. Your mind may be feeling various emotions, joy and sorrow, honor and dishonor. The intellect may go through the fluctuations of the world, experiences of honor and dishonor, understanding and not understanding, logic and reason. Whatever the intellect going through, whatever the mind's feelings going through, and what the body goes through, it doesn't matter what you do in life, but how you do it. Where is your mind's fixation? Where is your constant attention? What is your awareness? What is your fixation? Yoga ratova, bhoga ratova, sanga ratova, sanga vihinaha. Yasya brahmani ramate chittam nandati nandati nandatyeva. Either you are in yoga, union with the self, or spiritual practices, or in bhoga, in sensual enjoyments, when as well as long as you are fixed in the connection with the Supreme Self, nandati nandati nandatya, you are in blissful reveling in the self and self alone. Either you are in company or you are without the company, alone. It doesn't matter who you are, where you are, and what you are. Where is your mind constantly anchored, pegged onto? That determines your quality of your development, your divine center. You are moving towards the self or not is determined by the fixation of your mind. The intellect should be fixed on the thought of the self, that awareness. So while you are functioning in the world, you must maintain that awareness of the Supreme Self back of your mind. Keep your thoughts in the divine center while you function in the world. Never let yourself slip out of your Supreme Self. Just as fishes live in the medium of water, birds live in the medium of atmosphere, you live in the medium of consciousness, the pure divine consciousness. Just as fishes never lose the connection with the water, you never disconnected from the self. You are already in the self. You are already engulfed by the self, encapsulated by the self, self and self everywhere. But your memory has been lost. Your inner connection has been lost. Therefore, you suffer the sorrows. It's like a fish is thirsty of water, being living in the water. That is the tragedy. Fish is lost the contact of the water, idea of the water, mentally. That kind of a tragedy fell upon this human being today. Never let yourself slip out of yourself. Your Supreme Self, never lose yourself. Just as fishes and birds, atmosphere and the water, so do you live in the medium of the Supreme Self, real self, the medium of divine consciousness. You are all the time in touch with the consciousness, pure consciousness, God consciousness, and you are not aware. So that consciousness is the real self. You are that self. That is your own self. You are that Supreme Self. Remember, you are the self within all the time. You never forget that Supreme Self. You are that Atman. You are God by yourself. That remembrance you must maintain. You have to understand. Remember, you are the self and self alone all times. That the word, Tattvamasi. I am Atma Brahma, the great Mahavakyas. I am that self. The self within me is divine consciousness, the Supreme Self, the God itself. That is the connectivity, that is the awareness will help you to revel in the Supreme Self, the Supreme peace and bliss, and your mind gets peace and bliss and it gets rid of agitations, disturbances. You get peace of mind only when you reach your identity, original identity, when you identify. You will soon rise above this worldly entanglements, worldly suffering and sorrow, the stress and strain, the bickerings of life will be put into end. The attachments and entanglements are broken away, and you reach that self realization, the state of God realization. The liberation you can experience only when you understand who you are. You are that supreme self. Once you establish your identity, fix your identity, you got the bull by the horns, you reached the enlightenment. That is the only possibility if you pursue the path of knowledge. The knowledge of the reality alone will take you to the identity of the supreme self which you are, and you enjoy the peace and bliss of infinite state by attaching yourself to divinity, the consciousness, and detach yourself from the worldly entanglements and suffering and sorrows. You can, to the extent you attach yourself to the supreme self, that much extent you are detached from the body and its perceptions and actions, mind and its feelings and emotions and thoughts of the intellect and ideologies. You are liberated and reach the enlightenment by this Gnana Marga. The path of knowledge alone will help you to reach that divine state of freedom, peace, and bliss. In actual practice, you must make sure that you got to study the scripture early in the morning, 4 a.m. You derive, you extract best results, great achievement of attaching to supreme self possibility only in the early hours of the day, 4 a.m. to 6 a.m., where you have the greatest benefit of sattvic tendency surfaces. The best result if you do so in the sattvic time, where the 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. is the sattvic time. You got to reflect upon what you have studied, what you understand, what you analyze, what you think. You got to put effort in sattvic time so that you maximize your absorption towards the supreme self, the Atman. You gain the knowledge maximum to reach the enlightenment, to reach the supreme state of peace and bliss. Best results is 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. reflection of what you study. You got to contemplate upon the truths therein in the scriptures. It's the maximum results early in the morning, and apply them in your life. So you got to be consistent in your approach to spiritual knowledge. It is not like post-retirement pastime. Spiritual study and reflection and contemplation is a full-time awareness of reality, because you got to get out of this bondage and suffering of this world. You got to get infinite state of peace and bliss and happiness, and you got to be free from these sufferings and sorrows. The only way is to rise yourself by yourself, apply yourself this absorption of this knowledge by reflecting and contemplating upon the truths laid down by this scriptural knowledge in the early hours of the morning in by consistent way. People take to spiritual knowledge but not consistent, therefore there is no commensurate results. Commensurate growth in the personality is experienced. You got to grow spiritually means you must be consistent in your study every day. In the morning, 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. is recommended because it is Brahma Muhurta, the sattvic time, the maximum time available for enhancing your spiritual core of your personality growth is only available 2 hours a day, 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. You get maximum efficiency, maximum effort is maximum results you can experience. That's why it is called Brahma Muhurta. Apply them in your life, be consistent in your efforts. The results of your endeavor, the results of your hard work, endeavor, they will show gradually. So you are experiencing better peace, better happiness, better relationships, better success, and better sharpness, better alertness, and freedom, agitations free, and the world is suitable for your convenience to passage to reach realization. Everything happens because of your consistency in the efforts in the early hours of the morning. You need to exercise a great deal of effort, of patience. You got to wait for the results gradually, because it's not an instant results. So the patience and perseverance is most important in spiritual path of knowledge, study, and reflection and contemplation and absorption of these values, and they will transform you, they will metamorphose you, they will uplift you to different dimension. You completely get out of this conditioned state to the unconditioned state of realization, possible only through your patience and perseverance in the consistency of your efforts towards the spiritual path is the advice given. Therefore, 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. is the best efforts. Never waste this time, is very, very propitious, favorable to your growth. Before you become established in the eternal being that you are, you got to put in effort for reaching that supreme state, what you are, the supreme self. Most people, if not all, lack this discipline of studying the scripture. Vast majority of people don't study. They don't want to study. They don't like to study. It is boring for them. Or scripture, or they are disinclined. They are disinclined to listening to spiritual discourses, spiritual knowledge. They are diffident. They don't like. Generally speaking, most people, they seek instant pleasures, immediate joys. They don't want to have a patient efforts to put in gradually. They want instant seekers for realization. They seek instant ways, instant way. What is the quick way to reach enlightenment? They seek the shortcuts, as it were, and they believe that by directly plunging into the so-called meditation, which is the final gateway to realization, without sufficiently preparing themselves, they plunge into meditation, they could attain the enlightenment. They believe falsely. They imagine that it is a shortcut to enlightenment. We can't study. It's too old for us to study. They don't have inclination to learn the scripture, gain the knowledge from masters, listen to spiritual discourses. They just directly want enlightenment through meditation, and that is the mankind madness is going on. Such people are far removed from the true divinity. They can never reach the self by this shortcut attitude of gaining spiritual enlightenment. Is impossible. In fact, they get suffocated, they get stressed out, they get caricatured, mentally sick, and derailed their personality and become sick minded, because the stress levels without the proper preparation is like a overloaded aircraft trying to fly high, it'll collapse. That's what you must understand. Spiritual development is gradually establishing yourself in the highest heights of enlightenment by gradual, from 0 to 100, step by step. You got to study every day, little by little, and absorb the knowledge, apply the knowledge, and more you will be patient enough and perseverant in the early hours of the morning. 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. is the best results you will experience, the closer to the divinity, or you will be fall short of the self if you are trying shortcuts for enlightenment through meditation without sufficient preparation. Such people are far removed from divinity. They can never reach this divinity in this way. Their intellect is obscured by a cloud of ignorance. They don't have the clarity. The ignorance shrouds their personality, colors their mind, clouds their intellect. They can't see the reality. So ignorance overtakes their personality and they can't experience any ounce of growth in the spiritual life. And the mind is infested with desires. As the mind increases its entertainment of desires, you are away from the self, aloof from the self, distanced away from the self, and you get sorrow and misery is the pursuit. Whereas the pursuit of knowledge frees the mind. Pursue, once you study and gain the knowledge of the reality by pursuing the path of knowledge, it liberates you, it gives you peace, it gives you joy, it gives you happiness. It frees the mind, clutterings and ignorances, everything. It clears the mind of all its desires and attachments, and your mind is becoming purer and purer and peaceful through divine knowledge. Godly knowledge alone purifies the mind and gives you peace. It clears, the knowledge clears the clouds of ignorance. All the unknown, inconsistent ideas and ideologies, desires and thoughts can be cleared by the Gnanam, knowledge of the self. Your intellect begins to distinguish. It is clearly establishes what is permanent, what is impermanent, what is real, what is unreal. Because your intellect has to come out and be dominative to the personality, then only it can help you. To make that intellect strong, you need to study every day in the morning, 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. Then the clouds of ignorance which covers the mind gets freed, and your intellect clearly distinguishes what is unreal, what is real, what is which is beneficial to you, what is poisonous to you. Everything you can crystal clear distinguish, because your intellect is sharp, shining and brilliant. Your intellect functions, therefore you can see everything and you perceive the play of divinity. You perceive the play of divinity everywhere, how it is functioning in the life. You perceive the play of divinity on all walks of life. There is far more power in your disciplined way of living than in most men of their assumed state of meditation. So, there is a far more power in your disciplined way of living, of body perfection, mind perfection, intellect perfection through the knowledge and practice, abhyasena, efforts, consistency, with the patience and perseverance. You gradually, intellect becomes clearer and clearer, mind becomes purer and purer, body becomes dynamic, and you are growing spiritually towards peace and clarity and bliss and moving towards the self. That is called more power. More you generate energy, you generate power, you generate peace, you generate dynamism, generate success, everything in your disciplined way of living, rather than in most people who are assuming in the state of meditation. They are imagining that meditation will give their peace of mind without sufficient preparation, sufficient qualification, sufficient readiness to plunge into meditation, they get frustrated, repressed, suppressed, because their minds are not free from the attachments and desires. Trying to meditate is impossible task. With this, we'll study from the next paragraph onwards in the next class. We'll continue path of knowledge in the next class. Thank you very much. Hari Om.